Hey guys, Public back with another video, and today I want to go over all of the powers that we have available for us inside of Torghast, how you use them, and what some potential builds are for Torghast, okay? So if you want to actually see some of the Torghast gameplay, I'll have that in the background. And then in a future video, I'm actually going to do a whole Torghast run and kind of walk through choices I'm making, how I'm doing things, and how everything works. Okay guys, so if you haven't seen Torghast, this is the video for you. Alright, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing, just if you haven't seen before, so Torghast is kind of the new content that we get to do either on a weekly basis or whatever, daily basis, whatever you want to do. It's kind of like replacing what Island Expeditions or Visions or Warfronts have been in the past from a BFA perspective, in that, you know, this is how we're going to be able to craft legendaries, maybe get some gear upgrades, find other things to upgrade soulbinds, stuff like that. And so you're probably going to do this either once a week at a minimum is kind of what we're feeling right now. So it is kind of important to understand what you can do. It's, you know, from my testing, it's actually a pretty fun piece of content. I don't know if Shadow Priest is the most fun to do it on. I've done it for basically every spec in the game now, but there are some interesting builds that can be made here. So I kind of want to talk about each individual power and where some of them kind of make sense, because as you're progressing through Torghast in this kind of roguelike dungeon, you do get powers that amplify your character in like kind of like a broken way, so to speak. So let's go over each one of those powers and see what some of them do. Okay, so let's start going through the powers. I'm not going to go through everything in here, just going to go through the ones specific to Priest that kind of do something to our damage kit at some point. There are other ones that are, I guess, more healing focused or party buffing focused, but I'm not going to go over those here. The other thing to keep in mind that all of these, for the most part, can stack. So you can run multiple of these abilities to get kind of double the benefit on some of them, although some of them just don't work when they're stacked, and I'll call those out when they come up. But the first one is Cathar Stick. So 20% of all damage that you take is stored in this Cathar Stick. The initial damage of your next Shadow Word Pain deals this stored damage to your target. Not like a super interactive ability, but it is just kind of damage, so it is what it is. Next up, we have Cruelty Sensor. This is one of the abilities that kind of triggers a build. So you deal 25% more damage to creatures that are feared, horrified, stunned, or dazed, right? So if you find this power, especially early on, definitely kind of want to suggest leaning towards anything that kind of helps fear mobs more or daze them or whatever to get more benefit out of this power. Next up, we have Dead Mawrat. Killing a Mawrat grants you a charge of Shadow Word Death. This bag can hold up to 28 Mawrats. Dead Mawrats, so 28 charges of Shadow Word Death. There is some build you can use here where Shadow Word Death does consume your dots, which can be paired with the legendary effect here. So you can kind of go full hog into a Shadow Word Death-esque build if that's what you want to do. And you can use this to help alleviate that. Mawrat's kind of, you know, some floors there's a lot, some floors there's not many, so not a super consistent power, but is what it is. Next one, this is just kind of a small note. This doesn't necessarily increase our damage, but I want you to keep this in mind. Diary of Necrotic Thoughts. Mind control can be used on undead beings. So typically in Torghast, you find a lot of humanoids where mind control works just fine. And this is where I want to bring this up because there is a lot of powers in here that do revolve around mind control. So whether or not, you know, you're very into being a mind control priest, there are some things in here that buff that. So depending on your run, you might actually be swayed to take this and start just mind controlling stuff. Next up, this is probably the most broken power that we have. Definitely least fun to play with. Horrific Dictionary. Each different word spell that you cast increases your intellect by 5% for 5 minutes, right? So Shadow Word Void, any kind of word spell that we have, Power Word Shield, all that kind of stuff, Power Word Fortitude, all helps to increase the stacks of this. And let's say you use all the abilities you have for Shadow Spec, you can actually then go switch to Disc and then Holy to use all the word spells and get, like, I don't know, like 20 some, like I forget how many stacks there are, but there's a lot of word spells that we have, right? Especially if you change talents and that kind of stuff. And all you have to do is cast one word spell to refresh the entire thing. So you don't have to cast every word spell once every 5 minutes. You just have to cast them all one time and then just cast any of them to keep the whole buff up. And it's just such a giant amount of intellect. It just makes everything hit so much harder. But it's kind of tedious, especially that you kind of feel somewhat obligated to like swap specs to do more damage. But yeah, it is what it is. Okay, so Impulsor casting, Mind Blast will daze the target, reducing their movement speed and chance to hit by 20% for 1 minute. But subsequent quests of Mind Blast will remove this effect, right? So you basically, you know, can cast Mind Blast once on someone. Now they're feared. They do 25% more damage if you have that Cruelty Sensor trait. So this is kind of where that build starts to play into effect. But, you know, if you cast Mind Blast a second time on them, it removes that effect. So you got to be careful. Now, there is a second power that I'm going to jump to, which is Modified Impulsor, where casting Mind Blast no longer removes that effect, so you can get a second power to remove that negative component from it. Next up, we have Idea Eater. Mind Blast critical strikes grant 20 insanity. You can see there's a lot of stuff here kind of playing into this Mind Blast idea or Mind Blast build. Next up, even more Mind Blast. Mind Explorer. So Mind Blast damage is increased by 500%, but its cooldown is then increased by 400%. Right, so Mind Blast becomes this giant hard-hitting ability. So you could fear someone, Mind Blast them, and they just get blasted to death if you have that fear talent. So this is kind of where that giant build comes into play, if that's how you want to play, right? Next up, we have Painbreaker Psalm. This is exactly similar to the legendary effect that we have. Shadow or Death consumes your Shadow or Pain effects on the target, dealing all remaining damage. So the legendary doesn't consume everything, and it also works with Vampiric Touch. This is just specifically to Pain. It does stack with the legendary if you like to use that with this. It can be kind of neat, but there you go. Next up, we have Pain Wheel, which extends the duration of Shadow or Pain by 4 seconds. So this is important to note that this actually pairs with the Painbreaker Psalm I just mentioned before, right? Since Shadow or Death with that consumes all duration of Shadow or Pain, adding duration means that actually does more damage. So you can add that. Now keep in mind, since Death still does do damage to ourselves based on the damage that it does, you can easily kill yourself with this. There's plenty of clips of Ellipsis doing that and other people doing that. Because if there's a mob that you say hit for, thousands and thousands of damage that would have killed you, but, it's fine, they die instantly. But some mobs in Torghast actually don't die. They just go to 1 health and do some RP for a second. And then you would take the damage, right? So be careful. Next up, Pandemonium Loop. Casting Mind Blast on a target that is feared triggers Pandemonium, fearing all enemies near your target, right? So you could fear a mob, have it start running away towards another pack, pull a bunch of stuff, come back and Mind Blast the feared mob. Now everything else is feared. You get a kind of like a chain reaction of fears, and then you get this nice, like, if you have the fear, any of the fear traits, you do more damage if they're feared, so it can be good. Okay, next up we have some more mind control abilities. So Puppet Master Strings. Mind control also increases the target's damage by 50%. So this is kind of the catalyst for the mind control build, where you're basically saying, like, okay, if I get this early on, the couple first floors that you're doing are kind of difficult, so you do kind of want to start mind controlling enemies with this just to get through it. And whether or not you get more mind control stuff is on you. Next up, we have Psychic Wallet. Casting mind control on an enemy will empty their pockets, granting roughly 15 Phantasma. Phantasma is a currency used inside of Torghast to buy benefits for you, whether it's more powers or more stats, whatever. So again, if you're going to kind of go mind control heavy, you might as well use this if you get it. Next up, we have Rapid Contagion. This is kind of the last one of our damage-specific ones. Using Mind Control on a Maw Rat will trigger Rapid Contagion, causing all Maw Rats within 15 yards to give birth to 2 to 5 additional Maw Rats, right? So if you use this with the Dead Maw Rat trait or other ones that, like, make Maw Rats explode, for example, you can kind of piece together this Mind Control, like, Maw Rat build and do a crap ton of damage with Maw Rats. It's an option. Okay, guys, and then the last powers that you will potentially get throughout your run that I wanted to talk about are the talent-specific ones. So there are ones for basically every talent row that we have to give us an additional talent. So I'm going to go through those real quick. So first up, you get one that can give you Fortress of the Mind, which is just, more Mind Blast, Mind Flay damage, Insanity, all that good stuff. You'll just use this with Shadow or Void, so it's fine, just passive damage increase. Works pretty great if you're running all the Mind Blast traits. There's also ones for Body and Soul and Last Word to give you more options from a utility perspective. Next up, we have Gain Auspicious Spirits. It's probably the worst one that you could possibly get. I don't know if you'd ever actually pick this, because the other option that you get to choose from is probably better than this, because Auspicious Spirits just doesn't do very much. You also get one that gains Twist of Fate, so you can use this with Misery to get extra execute damage. Nice to have. I don't know if it'll change much, but it's nice. Next up, we have Lingering Insanity, so you can use this with Mindbender, which is probably what you're going to use inside of Torghast. It's fine. Again, you're not going to notice it a whole lot, but should make consistency between packs a little bit better. And then finally, you get Legacy of the Void, and you can use this with Dark Ascension to get more and more Void forms up. So nothing too exciting here. Just wanted to call it that you do get some of these talent guys. These are the abilities that can't be stacked, so you can't gain Body and Soul. And it's not like they keep giving you charges of that talent row. It's statically giving you that talent. So that's what it is. All right, guys, that is all the powers that I wanted to go over in this video that are kind of pre-specific. You can see there's all kinds of kind of fun, quote-unquote fun builds, depending on your playstyle that you might like here. The two main ones here are the Mind Blast one that you can use to kind of have a huge giant Mind Blast that fears endures more damage when things are feared, all that good stuff. There's also the mind control build, which, you know, isn't super exciting, but if you stack enough of that stuff, your mind control target will just do so much damage. You can start annihilating floors with it. And then kind of the last one is this kind of Shadow Word Death consuming one, where you're just consuming Shadow Word Pain on everything, where you just basically Shadow Word Pain a mob, Shadow Word Death, and keep moving on to the next mob. And, you know, those are kind of the 3 main builds that you can do. There are other ones, or you can kind of, you know, play your run, see what you get, but that's basically how Priest is going to play inside of Torghast. So if any of these look kind of cool, like I said, I'm going to do a walkthrough video of kind of me walking through Torghast run and show you some of these choices, so look for that coming soon. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.